that I get to introduce one of our own members. Carletta has been doing this for, and I won't even say how long because that might tell her age, for many, many years. She came from corporate America. She will, as a good example of how you can do this, hold down a full-time job and do real estate part-time, then start to transition to doing maybe the job part-time, doing the real estate more full-time, until you finally get to the point where you can quit your job and do this full-time. And that is basically what she went through. She was up to managing 35 houses and still working full-time. So if she can do 35, y'all can do 1 or 2. But she has now basically specialized in Section 8 housing. She has perfected it down to the nth degree, and she's going to share her information with us tonight. Please give a big welcome to Carletta.
Have you ever wondered what techniques can be used to keep good tenants? And there are several. How can you stop losing your best tenants to the other landlords? And I'm talking about a landlord who might have a property 5 or 6 houses down from you. There are ways in which you can stop that kind of activity. What about turning a marginal tenant to a great tenant? Now, most of the people that I know, in fact, I don't think I have, out of all the speakers that I have heard over the last 25 years, I can't think of one speaker who talks about how to turn a marginal tenant into a good tenant or even a great tenant. There are ways to turn your tenants, okay? It is a process, it is a journey, but believe me, you can do it. I've done it countless number of times, and it will create for you, as it has for me, an absolute pot of gold for your tenants and a gold rush for you. And I'm going to tell you how to do that. Now, I'm going to, just so we understand in context, I'm going to go back a little bit in the beginning, because you kind of have to understand the beginning so you can kind of understand the journey all the way through. Now, how many of you know Jeff Keogh, Mr. Landlord? Okay, about half of you know him. Jeff is a vivacious speaker. Okay, he is a wonderful speaker, and probably about 25 years ago, I was at an OREA conference where he was a guest speaker. Jeff was really getting started back then, and he delivered a presentation. His business was just in the infancy. He had launched Mr. Landlord and all of that, but he was still pretty much in the stages of infancy. Well, I got so excited listening to him, and at that time I was working a full-time job, okay? I really didn't know very much about real estate, but somebody had told me, hey, I think you should probably, go to the conference. So I joined GDRE, and as a result I ended up going to the conference that year. But I sat in part as part of his presentation, and I just got so fired up. I mean, I really caught the vision. I have an uncle who's 94, and he told me, maybe about 25, 30 years ago, he said, you know what, Carletta, he says, I've lived long enough to know one thing. As long as you work an 8 to 5 job, or an 8 to 8 job, you're never going to be rich. Now, he defined rich in several ways, not just monetarily, although that was one aspect, but he defined rich as quality of life, spending time with your family, doing some traveling, having the time to do all the things that you've always wanted to do. That's how he defined rich. And he told me, he said, you never get that in an 8 to 5 job. And I was working in fact, I was working a job that was way more than 8 to 5. But I had a hard time understanding that until I went to Jeff's course. And then, after that, I talked my father into helping me purchase my first rental because I didn't have enough money to do it. And a gentleman across the street from us said to us, he knocked on our door and said, look, I'm on my way to a nursing home. And I got a great little house across the street, it's 2-bedroom. he said, maybe you guys might want it since you live right here in the neighborhood. Initially, we said, no, we really don't want it. Then we got thinking, well, maybe we do want it. So my father and I got together, and then we put together some money for it. Years later, I formulated what I call the stars. And I'm going to tell you about the results that I have had from the stars, and I know you will have from the stars, because it's an absolute great program. And also why you need to consider a resident retention program. Now, how many of us have a resident retention program? Wow, me and Kaya. Okay, that's not too uncommon. Jeff Taylor had about 100 people at his landlord cruise last year, and several of us was there. And he asked that same question. He had about 100 people in the room. Fabulous cruise, by the way. And he said, how many people in here have a resident retention program? Well, my hand went up, and I was, kind of like Kai. I was sitting in the front, and I kind of looked back. There's probably about 3 or 4 other hands that had gone up. And Jeff said, goodness, is that all? Just like 3 or 4 of you? He kind of shook his head. And then later, I was talking with Jeff and his wife, Dot, and I was telling them about my program, and they got really excited about it. Everybody needs to have a resident retention program, because if you really want to impact your cash flow, you gotta have it. Rental business typically is a long distance game. Most people don't buy property to rent for a year. Now, sometimes you do if you're just gonna flip it, rent it for a little bit, and then you want to flip it. But if that's not really what you're doing, and you really are buying a rental for it to continue to be a rental, it's a long distance game. So you need to make sure that you carry along with you your best tenants, because they will stay with you year after year after year. Now, I am the CEO of my company. It's called Colonial Residential Properties, and I want to tell you a little bit about my background. I graduated from Bowling Green State University, and I got my bachelor's degree, and there's a lot of people in my family that are teachers. So my mother pressed my brother and I to be a teacher. I mean, every day we heard this, you gotta be a teacher, you gotta be a teacher, you gotta be a teacher. And being a teacher is a wonderful career. So we were kind of ingrained with that. So I went to Bowling Green, got my teaching degree. My intent was to be a social studies teacher in either middle school or high school. And I spent 4 years trying to do just that, until I got to my student teaching. And then the lights came on big time. I taught in a district that's just on the outskirts of Toledo. You may be familiar with it. It's called Sylvania, Ohio. Anybody know where Sylvania, Ohio is? Okay. There is a school system there called Arbor Hills. It is one of the richest school systems in this state, and it is one of the richest school systems in this country. These people don't need any tax revenue type money, really. They do very, very well, because the kids that go to Arbor Hills are very wealthy. And someone had come up with this concept of getting away from just the little hallway of classrooms, in your high school, you got classroom. Someone came away with the idea for the future, we're getting away from all that, and we're going to have an open classroom kind of structure. Well, what that meant was having students in what looked like a gymnasium, okay? And so some of you who are teachers may be a little bit familiar with this. This was, something that was being pushed back then. The new wave of how do you teach children. And literally what they were doing, they had a big room like a gymnasium. And a teacher and 30 students would be in that corner. And then a teacher and another 30 students would be in that corner. And then there would be a teacher and 30 students in this corner. And then there would be a teacher and 30 students in that corner. And the concept of this was, nobody should fall behind, because everybody's going to teach exactly the same thing. I mean, exactly the same thing. And the problem with that, as you can imagine, is that assumes that all kids learn in exactly the same way, and they do not. So we had the challenge, not only that, but the noise level, because everybody's saying, who knows the answer to, now the hands are going up all over the place. So we had to really play tricks with the system. We had to put our best students on the back row. Why? Because they were just in front of the back row of the other group. Okay, you put your average students, or even if you had some slower students, put them in the front. You put them on the front row, because they can't handle all the noise. It's too much distraction for them. So I came away from that experience saying, is this the wave of the future? Well, I had a problem with that, because I'm like, well, suppose my kids aren't quite there. Maybe they need a little extra instruction. They need a little extra learning. Well, you can't do that, because you can't stop. You gotta be on the same journey with everybody else. So I decided after that experience, I can't do it. I couldn't do it. So on a fellowship, I went back to school, but this time I went to Ohio State, and I decided to go into human resources. And I really was supposed to have been like human resources on the college campus, like an admissions director, a financial aid officer, administrator, that sort of thing. But I decided to turn mine to business. And so after that, after I graduated, I became HR manager and senior consultant for several major corporations here in the Dayton area. All along the way, I was doing my real estate part-time. I found a manager at Digital Equipment Corporation, which used to be the largest employer in the state of Massachusetts, which is completely out of business today, by the way. But I told him, I said, I'm thinking about this real estate thing. So he allowed me to work part-time, and that's literally how I went from full-time to part-time. Now, I had a wonderful career in HR until all of the layoffs in the 80s and the 90s. You remember though, back then, remember the stock market crash, big crash in 87, there were a whole bunch of layoffs, and we were literally, as HR managers, being measured on whether we could have people, what I call sit up, double up, and smile up, which means we were telling people, you got two employees, Mary and John, and we were literally going to Mary and say, Mary, times are kind of tough. We're going to have to let you go. We wish you the best. We're going to have to let you go. Then we go over to John and we say, John, you should be real excited, okay, because you're still here. And not only going to have to do your job, but guess what? You got to go over and do Mary's job too. And we were being measured on whether or not we could make employees happy around that. Okay? We really were. And it was a very, very tough thing. Anytime companies talk about cutting expenses, it's normally the employees is one of the big expenses that they cut. They were moving a lot of operations overseas. Why? Because of cheaper labor. And so we were trying to help employees understand all of that. So we kind of become almost pop psychologists, behavior modificationalists. And, I didn't get into HR for that. I got into HR to be an employee relations person or compensation or benefits administrator, that sort of thing, labor relations or something like that. But I found myself in the mix of all of this that I really did not want to do. And not only that, but if we gave you a 2% increase and you were doing real well for a 2% increase, most people didn't get any. But a 2% increase on a $50,000 salary, $50,000 salary, once you take the benefits and stuff out, and the taxes and everything, you know what that is? It comes out to about $30. A 2% increase, and we were trying to sell people on it. Okay, we were trying to get people to say, you know what? That's a wonderful thing you guys just did for me. 2% increase on a $50,000 salary, and we were being measured on that. And if all that wasn't bad enough, the suicides. I've personally been involved in 3 suicides over my career, and I'm not even going to get into the gory details of it, but very, very difficult. That, again, I didn't get into HR for that type of situation, or having to deal with that type of situation, but we were having to identify people, because they had to prove that they were an employee, and I mean, it was just, you know, not something that I really want to do. And then the drug hits. Drug dealers, the big ones, not the little ones, but the big ones calling up saying, I'm going to get John, and I don't care whether you're in the way or somebody else is in the way. I'm getting him because he owes me a bunch of money, and if I have to shoot up everybody in here to get to him, I'm getting to him. Now we're dialing 911 and the FBI and everybody else to try to figure out what's going on. I personally have been escorted to my car, escorted to the front door many, many times because of all of the threats that we were getting just in HR, and part of that was just the massive terminations that we were doing. Plus, I was working maybe about 70 hours a week. So it was a good career until it got to all of that. And at that point in my life, I decided to make a change. And I had the choice of, do I stay in human resources or do I literally now jump full-time? Because I was doing it part-time. Jump full-time into real estate. Well, I decided to jump full-time into real estate. I left my HR career after about 27 years, and I obtained my realtor's license. I attended a number of Jeff Taylor's courses. I continued acquiring rental properties, and I ended up buying quite a few. I did manage properties for other entities, and I did a real deep dive in the increase in cash flow. And I then started doing business with Section 8, which I absolutely love. And you will never hardly hear anybody say that they love Section 8, okay? Most people do not love Section 8, okay? Most people would prefer Section 8 just go away altogether. But I love Section 8, and this is really not a presentation about Section 8, but I will say that I've developed a quality relationship with them. And here's some of the attributes of Section 8. The fact that you get the guaranteed lease, less destruction of property if you do a good job of screening. And our program offers those families incentives which result in less evictions, less lease violations, and less repairs. So I'm not really here to talk a lot about Section 8. I think the guy before me said that would take a whole seminar just by in and of itself, and I would agree. There's so much to that. Okay, this is my first rental. It is a Section 8 house. It's a two-bedroom unit. I bought that unit in '87. This is the one that my father helped me to get. And I still have that unit today. And that unit has been a cash cow for me. Part of it has been because of the retention program. Now, life isn't about how to survive the storm, but rather how to dance in the rain. And I don't even know who said that, but that is perfect for what I'm going to talk about, because tenants and toilets and the midnight calls and all of that can drive you just absolutely over the edge. But tenant retention programs, if they are done right, you won't have to deal with so much of that. Now, one of the things that I encourage everybody to do is, first of all, get a tenant retention program. Get something in place. It will significantly impact your cash flow. And I would also tell you that one of the foundations of a good tenant retention program, and you don't have to do all of these, you may not even do any of these, but I've found over the years that having tenant principles that are listed here have certainly helped me to build a solid foundation for a resident retention program. And so I'm not going to really read through all of those, but just simply to say that we treat our tenants as business partners. We don't really treat them as tenants like you would, think of them as tenants. These people are an integral part of my business, and I'll let them know that. If I lose any one of them, that takes a little notch off my business. So I work very hard to keep all of my best families. But one of the reasons why I'm able to do it is how I approach them, okay, and how I allow them to approach me. I do get my tenants to love the property and to respect the property manager, which is me. Those tenants that are disrespectful or dysfunctional, I get rid of them real fast. Because why? Because I know they're not going to last. They're simply not going to last. And them not lasting means I have to go in and rehab that unit when they move out. And then I've got to release that unit, introduce a new tenant to it. You add that all together, and what does that mean? Negative cash flow big time. Because it takes a while to get through that process. So I don't have anybody who does a whole lot of cussing and fussing with me. If they are in big disagreement, now, you know, disagreements is okay. But if you have a disagreeable attitude, you can't rent any of my units. You just can't. We can't make it, okay? Because it's not a long-term resident that I'm looking for. And when I rent my units, I'm only looking for people who are going to be with me long-term. And there are ways to tell that. This also helps you to shape behavior and conduct. Now, you might say, well, I don't really want to get into the shaping behavior and conduct business. And I would say you don't really have to do so much of that. Once you set some expectations, it'll all follow. It'll all fit together. We do set high standards. We don't accept the unacceptables for money. I don't rent houses to prostitutes. I don't rent houses to drug dealers. And those drug dealers, by the way, pay faithfully on tap, everybody. A little bit hard to turn those folks down. But when I go back to the tenant principle, I go, no, I can't do it. So those are some of the things that we do. We do stay involved with the community in which our properties reside. I'm a active participant with several neighborhood associations. And one of the fundamental things I found, when a tenant knows you care, they'll care. If they don't think you don't care, they probably aren't going to care. So that's really fundamental to us. We've had some families to leave, but mostly it's because they've left the state. They've gone to other parts of the country for better job opportunities. We've had a couple families, the kids have grown up. The unit's now too big for them, so they need to downsize. They need to find a smaller unit. We've actually had a handful of people ask to return. They've gotten out there a year or two, then they call me up. Can I come back? You got anything available? I'll take anything. Because I haven't found the kind of relationship with my property manager that you afforded me when I was with you. Now, we also have some core values. Now, we talked about the tenant principles. What about the core values of our company? Now, again, you may or may not embrace any of these, but I will simply tell you, to the extent that you have some good core values, means that you have a sustainable tenant retention program, or at least the foundation for one. We do hire quality people to do quality work. We keep our houses at code always, and one of the reasons why we do that is because we do business with Section 8. We do probably 99.9% of our business with Section 8. The rest we do with Miami Valley Housing. And in the past, we've done a few little things with Eastwood, okay? All of those organizations provide subsidies for the families. We don't cut corners on the must-haves, plumbing, electrical, furnace, to name a few. There is no maintenance person is allowed to enter our unit unless a person 18 years or older is present. Now you might say, I'm not sure that's all that important. Our families love it. Most of our units, most of our tenants are single moms. And they're working like crazy. These girls work 2-3 jobs. They're relying on the 15-year-old, the 16-year-old to get the kids off the school bus, put a little food on the table for them. And the worst thing would be for one of our guys to come in and, either look a certain way at maybe a 16-year-old female or say something, worst case, do something, So to make sure that that does not happen, we tell all of our families at the very beginning, we will not have anyone in your unit unless an adult is present. Ooh, I get a lot of, oh, thank you for that. They say that to me all the time. And I'm thinking, that seems like such a little thing. We're just saying, well, we're just not going to have anybody in here, unless an adult is present. But for them, it is powerful. It is very powerful. It gives them that comfort feeling that nobody's coming in, nothing's being exchanged, there's no, looking, there's no talking, there's nothing inappropriate is being done or said. We rehab houses to add value to the neighborhood. The staff must treat the tenants with dignity and respect. We rehab rentals to a standard you would expect to live in. And my husband and I did this as an experiment. For about 8 months, we went and lived in one of our rentals in a tough neighborhood. Because I wanted to see, as I worked on my resident retention program, whether or not I could really carry this off in a tough neighborhood. And the only way I really knew it was to experience it firsthand. So he was reluctant. I drug him, to it. He's like, we're going to live where? You got to be kidding. I ain't going over there. Took me probably a couple of months to talk him into it. But eventually he did. So we went over and lived. And I can tell you the tenants in the neighborhood, this was in a double, by the way. It wasn't even a single family home. It was a double. They just like, oh my God, the landlord moved in. Everybody be on their best behavior. Because if she ain't watching, her husband is. But we heard the gunfire at night, and that's been years ago. Anyway, but it gave me a good perspective on how I could develop this program based upon my own experience. All of our maintenance calls from our tenant are answered within 24 hours, except weekends and holidays when we're closed. And we have a very simple, plain, but very thorough lease. Our leases are 15 pages, and yes, it does have the kitchen sink in it. We got a little clause there saying, you know what, if you scratch up this kitchen sink, you gonna owe me, and you owe me. So we let them know that, we don't take too kindly to people damaging our unit. And then we establish a long-term relationship with our repairmen. Now, our core values, these are the core values in category. These are the same core values for those of you who want to do business with Section 8. I can tell you that these are the same core values that Section 8 has. They're also the same core values that Miami Valley Housing has if you want to do business with them. And they are absolutely the key to our success. We do offer superb property management. If you go out on our website, there's a whole bunch of comments from our tenants telling us about some great things that we've done for them. We do have strong collaboration with the entire Section 8 staff, from the executive director all the way over to the receptionist and Miami Valley Housing as well. We believe that we're honest, fair, we have a consistent message, we treat everybody the same. And by the way, how many people are members of Fair Housing? Did you all know you could be a member of Fair Housing? You can actually be a member of the local Fair Housing. It costs maybe $35 or $40 for an annual membership, but it will pay you huge dividends if you become a member. Why? If you do have a fair housing issue, then you, by virtue of your membership, it may not overturn it, whatever you did, but it certainly will go a long way when you know all the fair housing people and they know you and you are a member of their organization and have been for years. So that if something does come up, then you have a network. And as I say, I want to be clear, depending on what happened here, it may not overturn it, but at least you have a listening ear. If you're totally on the outside, they don't know who you are, chances are they're coming after you. Passion. We really love our families and our tenants, and I wanted to share with you just real quick a letter that we received just here recently from one of our families. She says, "Dear staff, of Colonial Residential Properties. I want to thank you for your deepest concern in my time of need. Now, her son was shot and killed in gang violence. Okay? This is a pain I wouldn't wish on any parent, and for your gratitude, I am sincerely grateful. Thank you for your patience on the rent payment, because we gave her a little extra time to pay her rent, naturally because of this. And just for showing that your staff really cares about the resident families, and the card really made me feel a little brighter. Thank you so very much, and then she signs it. And we get those letters periodically from our families, and in this case it had to do with the death. But it's because we do care about our families, and we let them know it, and we let them know it on an ongoing basis, is the reason why I think we've done so well. Respect, we treat everyone with dignity, unity, we value diversity, accountability. We have tremendous processes in place, procedures, records, innovation. We have a website that is doing very well. Anytime somebody wants to apply for our units, they go directly to our website. And then we have a little thing called Slide Broadcast. Has anybody ever heard of Slide Broadcast? You might want to check into it. Let me tell you what it does. You can put numbers, phone numbers, into Slide Broadcast and cascade a message to your tenants. So instead of you sending a letter or even an email, if I want to wish everybody a wonderful holiday, all I do is go in Slide Broadcast, record a message, says, this is, I call myself Miss Worthy, they know me as Miss Worthy. This is Miss Worthy from Colonial Residential Properties. I want to wish everyone a wonderful holiday and a very prosperous new year. Okay? And it goes, and I tell it, I want you to send that message at 1 o'clock on Tuesday. And I load up all the numbers, and it goes, and they get it. I might also say to them, we're getting ready to have inclement weather. There is a storm coming. And we want to make sure, because we want you to be sure that your doors latch, because worst case would be, you know, the wind gets up under, slams it back, tears up all the frame of your door, now you got a cost. So we say things like that to them, and we say, we just want to encourage you to just check your doors, you know, make sure, and then we hope everybody will be safe, your entire family. It takes 1 second to put a message in. You can even record messages and leave them recorded, and then send them out through Sky Broadcast. For those of you who are interested in that, just Google Sky Broadcast, and it'll tell you all about it. GoSection8.com. Believe it or not, we were the company that told Section 8, Dayton Section 8, about GoSection8.com. They were trying to, for years, automate their process. For those of you who might be around for a while and have done business with Section 8, what were they doing over and over and over again? Losing paper. Losing paperwork. Okay? I bet years ago I'd take 3 copies. I'd mail a copy. All right? Then I'd email a copy. Then I'd go make a physical trip to the Section 8 office to take them a copy. Why? Because they kept losing the paper, which was slowing everything down. And I was trying to move forward. They're like, well, we didn't get that. We didn't get that. So I was having to double up on that, which made absolutely no sense. So one day I told them, I said, you know what? You guys need to automate. Y'all need to automate. Well, we're working on it. We hired some software engineers, and we're trying to put a little something together. Did you know there's a national GoSection8.com website and, you know, portal? What'd you say the name of it was? GoSection8.com. National. We never heard of that. Oh, well, you need to go check that out. And the director did. She come back later and told me, she said, we had no idea that even existed. And what it is, was several cities have banded together to create this portal. So today, they now have GoSection8.com, which is working really, really well for them. So we teamwork with them on a lot of things. I go to a lot of their events. I'm invited to some of their events that they have. And some of those events are on the public housing side. And then, of course, we strive for excellence in everything we do. Now, you know what? I forgot to do this. I forgot the little arrows. So we'll go past all those arrows. Okay. This is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath unit. Looks pretty plain, doesn't it? One of our Section 8 families created that look. Still there today. And this is what it looks like in the back. And you may not be able to see this too closely, but right here, she's got a pond. She was trying to figure out how to turn this into some sort of sprinkler pond kind of thing going on. This is a Section 8 family. And if you go on the inside of her house, you think you're in the Better Homes and Gardens. I'm telling you, I told her one day, you know what? You really need to go into business. You need to get some business cards together, and I'll help you do that if you like. And I said, you need to pass around some business cards because you understand, you know about landscaping, and you know about interior decorating. And when you go in her house at Christmas time, it is absolutely the most gorgeous thing you will ever see. And I kid you not. I mean, her house looks gorgeous. She's got garland floating all over the place. She's got lights up, and oh, it's just ornaments here and there. It is just really the most prettiest thing. And she won a 2013 Beautification Award that was offered from the Red Crest Neighborhood Association, the association that she is part of. Now, I wanted to share that with you just to let you know this is how you journey people from being a marginal tenant all the way to being a very good tenant, okay? And if you do have some problems with your tenant, and this is just free, I just kind of stuck this in the presentation. Every time you have a problem with a tenant, you go, you know, Mary, we've talked about this so many times. You know what, I'm thinking maybe this just isn't the right home for you. And then I add this. We can help you find another home. You'd be surprised what a tremendous motivator that is. I've had more families tell me, what? I know I can do it. I don't believe you said that. I'm not trying to look for another home. I'm going to rise up because we set some high expectations. It has worked for me several times, and I'll just give that to you free. Next time you have a problem, try that. It'll probably help you pretty good. Now, in the early days, we were doing very well, but we had one very big problem, and that was we were losing tenants far too fast. They were moving only about a mile or two away, sometimes just down the street. And the rehab cost for us, particularly because we do Section 8, may not be so much for you if you don't do as much Section 8 as we do, but it was high. I mean, the cost to rehab a unit, even today, the cost to rehab a unit to Section 8 standards, anywhere from $1,200 to $2,500. Ouch. That throws a real monkey wrench into your positive cash flow. And then it takes about 3 weeks to locate a new tenant. And then an additional 45 days to inspect and release. About 2 months later is when you're likely to get your first check. Well, that can be a painful time, so I had to come up with some way in which I could blow through all of that. And the way that I came up with it was through, in part, Jeff Taylor. Jeff Taylor has a 3-star program. His program is a little different from mine, but he's got a good one. And here's some of the things that he says. He offers incentives for residents to stay. It works well with all tenants. Now, my tenants happen to be Section 8, but this will work with any tenant that you might have. Residents who stay year after year take very good care of the property. That's absolutely factual. Residents consider it, and here's the key, their home and not your rental. It's an opportunity to deepen the relationship with the resident and the family. And this deepening the relationship is very clear. And stores do it all the time. They always kind of offer you some incentives. Or take our Visa card. Or if you're in a bank, get a checking account. Then get a savings account. Then get a CD or get something else. It's all about deepening the relationship. And then you're going to do exactly the same thing with your rental. You're going to deepen that relationship. The difference between my program and Jeff's, my program focuses on the family. Because I'm trying to deepen the relationship with the mother, the children, the husband, or significant other. And his program tends to look at, okay, I'll put a new ceiling fan in. I'll put a window air conditioning in. I might paint a room. I might put a room with carpet in. And those are the incentives that he gives. Again, very, very good program. Mine is the focus on the family because I think that for the long term means that that family is going to be around for quite a while in that unit. And this is where, through the process, through the journey, we begin to move a marginal tenant to a great tenant. We increase the value of your asset. We definitely reduce the break fix. Why? Because the longer they stay in your unit, the less break fix you're going to have. Why? Because they consider it their home. They're not going to tear up their home, most of them. If they're on drugs or something, that might be a little different because they're not thinking. But most of them will never tear up their own home if they're going to stay for the long haul, which is what we encourage them to do. And it does eliminate frequent move-outs, and it does increase the positive cash flow. Now, Jeff says you have potentially failed if your tenants, any of your tenants, whether you're in apartments or houses, he says at least, you potentially failed. Something you haven't done that caused them to leave. And I've kind of taken it on kind of as a personal challenge. And if they move, he said, there's usually never more than a couple miles away, if that. Here's a couple things that he says. Think of tenants as residents, not as tenants. The home of your new resident will be where they go when they leave work, where they raise their children, where they dream, where they grow, where they play, a place where they welcome family and friends, a place with lifetime memories. And I added this next paragraph, that residential or retention programs are loyalty programs. They help to support those precious memories, creating a long-lasting lifetime experience. Every landlord should have a resident retention program. They are absolutely key to having positive cash flow. Now, at last year's Mr. Landlord Cruise, much to my surprise, Jeff awarded me the Resident Retention Award. I was just so happy to get that back in January. And then in May, I received a very prestigious award called Making the Difference. This was an award out of 3,000 Section 8 landlords. I was recognized and received a very nice plaque and a whole bunch of other goodies for my long-term collaboration with Section 8. I suggested a whole host of things that they do. One of them is the quarterly meetings. That was really an idea that I came up with, that I got the director to embrace, and they still do those today. But mainly, it was given to me for dedication, participation, and continued involvement in the Section 8 program. I was so very honored to get that award. Now, let me tell you about my program. I had a three-star resident award program. Now, I came up with an Olympic theme because I wanted everyone to remember it. And I felt like if I came up with colors or something else, people might forget that. But everybody knows about the Olympics. Everybody knows the sequence is bronze, silver, gold. Okay, that's really ingrained in the American culture. Everybody knows it. So I took full advantage of that. But then I needed a way to set some expectations before we get to all of those stars. So I created a 4-star called the Starlet. And this is where, when a person first moves in to my unit, this is where we begin to set some expectations around conduct, around behavior, around treating my property like their home, about not damaging my property. I spend quite a bit of time with my new tenants along these lines. And I find that setting those expectations at the beginning goes a very, very long way. So the program that I had, it starts with a Starlet for the first year. Then it goes to a bronze, beginning the second year. Then for the third year, it goes to a silver. And for the fourth year, it goes to the gold. Now let me tell you how this works. When you are a Starlet, we guarantee you a 24-hour callback, which is part of our core values anyway. So it's not something that we're doing different, okay? It's just part of what we always do. And that's 24-hour callback except weekends. when we're closed, and holiday. Then we give them a holiday bonus, usually only $5 or $10. My best tenants get 10. The other tenants that I'm training, moving, pushing to be best tenants, they tend to get 5. And it's usually a Walmart gift card because everybody likes Walmart. But they are all paying at that level the full repair cost. And we do charge. If they damage my unit, I'm not just looking the other way. They do pay. They do pay me, okay, if they damage that unit. Then after that year, you go to a bronze. And then, of course, HB, holiday bonus. You get the bronze people get the holiday bonus too. But now, a year later, going into that second year's lease, we give them a $25, and that AFTLS stands for after lease signing. And then maybe 2 or 3 months later, we give them a $20 credit towards their water utility. You can do Vectren, you can do DP&L, doesn't really matter. And then we give them a $25 gift card about 3 or 4 months later. And then right about the time that they're getting ready to sign another lease, we then remind them by giving them another hit. So just in case they forgot what we've done all year, we give them another hit. And then we tell them, you're only going to pay a slightly reduced cost. Slightly reduced. You're not paying the full repair, you're paying a slightly reduced cost. All right, then after that year, we now come, so they've been what? They've been with us 2 years. So now we come to the third year, which is the silver. And we might offer them $25 after lease. I mean, you can offer people whatever you want to offer. We offer movie tickets. And we have a very nice letter that invites them and a guest to the movies. And we might increase from 25, we might do a utility, some type of utility credit. We might at some point give them toward, again, the end of their lease year. And again, this doesn't have to be on Section 8. This could be anybody. End of their lease year, we might give them a $55, that RGC stands for restaurant gift card, at the restaurant of your choice. So you tell us, where do you want that gift card? That's a very powerful thing. But see, if I go get you a gift card at Subway, and you don't even need it at Subways, well then you're going to think, well, what am I doing? I don't even eat there. But if you say to me, you know what? I eat at Lone Star Steakhouse. Oh, okay. I go over to Lone Star Steakhouse, and I get a gift card. And all these restaurants have gift cards. When they get that, that blows their mind. Because now they have an opportunity to take themselves and a guest and have a wonderful dinner. And we now, at the silver, 50% cost reduction is what they pay if they damage a unit. Well, then the next year, they now become gold. And one of our models is go for the gold. Again, keeping with the Olympic theme. So we might increase the lease signing. Now we do it after the lease sign. Why? Because we send a letter that says, this is what you'll get if you sign a lease. We don't give it before the lease. We only give it after the lease. Let me finish because I got so much I want to answer your question, but I got so much that I got to go through. I'll be happy to answer it at the end. We might give them a $35 water utility or electric or Vectren. We might give them a $40 shopping spree. You can get little gift cards at Dayton Mall. They can go have a wonderful time. There may be some other type of card. Maybe it's a $60 Walmart gift card. But at that point now they're at 65 cost reduction. So they're not paying all of that much for the repair. And my families absolutely love it. You know why? Because they know they have kids. And those kids are going to damage the unit. Because kids are going to be kids. They're going to break a spring or tear a spring. They may break a glass. They may, I don't know, do something. And, they know they're going to have to pay for it. So it's encouraging them to know, and I tell them this at the very beginning, that this is the journey. We really want you to stay, and this is the program that we have, that we offer. Now, what our motto is the longer you stay, the less you pay in repairs. And you can see that clearly from that last slide. Now, let's just look at the cash flow on the income side of this. Let's say you start off as a starlet, $700 per month, 12 months, $8,400. You've gained $8,400. All right, then I'll raise the rent by $20. So now you're at the bronze, you sign the lease, it's now $720. $720 times 12 gets you $8,640. Add that to the $8,400, now you're at $17. All right, then coming along the third year, for inflation reasons, I've now raised the rent for another $20. So now we're at $740, which ends up being $8,880, which now added to the 17 gives us $25,920. And then you stay another year, and now I've raised the rent again for another $20, $9,120. Added to that, $35,000. For the fifth year, I've raised it again, another $20, and you can raise it, however you want. I just do the $20 thing. $9,360, which takes us to a grand total of $44,400 for that one tenant. Now, let's look at that compared to the star awards that we've given along that same timeline. This is basically the same slide that we just saw, except for I added up all of those little tiny awards. And it comes to about $400 when you add them all up. Now, remember that $44,400 at the end of the chart? Look what happens. For that $44,400, all you've really done is given them about $400 in benefits. 25 year, 35 year, 15 year, 50 there, so on and so forth. Probably all total over 4 or 5 years, about $400 in award. And let's just say maybe you've done, maybe $10,000 in maintenance. Now you shouldn't be doing too much. Why? Because they're still there. So it's not like you're rehabbing. You might have to put on parts of a roof, or might have to do some plumbing, or maybe do some new electrical or something like that. But about $10,000 in maintenance. So we got $44,400 in awards, $10,000 in maintenance. So what that means, if you subtract those two figures from the 44, it leaves you at what? $34,000. If you had 10 residents, it would be $340,000 over that period of time. That, my friends, is where the positive cash flow comes. Now, in order to do this, you got to start at the beginning. And I have a wonderful program that helps you start right at the beginning with all the letters that come with it. We tell our families when they move in, congratulations. Okay, now we could have said welcome, but welcome does not have the same meaning as congratulations to them. And remember, part of this is just human dynamic. So when you say congratulations, then people think, I've won something. I've done something that deserved a congratulations. So that's what we use. And then here's the second part of that letter, and then the third part of that letter. Well, we had so many families stay with us for such a long time that we blew past the 4-star that I had created. So now, my long-term families looked at me and they said, so what you gonna do for me now? Now, I've been with you 4 years, now what other kind of incentive awards am I expected to get? So then I said, you know what? I gotta go past 4 years. Maybe I need to be trying to get these people to stay for 7 years. So I dropped the 4-star and made it just a star resident award program, and this is what they are. The next star, beyond the gold, is red carpet platinum. Now you might wonder, where'd you come up with that red carpet? Well, I happened to be watching the Golden Globes one night. And one thing that just struck me, and everybody knows about the Oscars, the Emmys, the Golden Globes, right? I mean, everybody in the country knows that. They all think they have a red carpet, right? People walk on it, they interview from it, they prance around on it and all that. But they are stars, right? But they're movie stars. So I got to thinking, well, people know that. Why don't I just make them a star? So I came up with, and I couldn't go with gold, silver, bronze. The first thing I thought was platinum. Okay, hadn't used that term. So then I made it a red carpet platinum. And then the next year you move on to the prestigious diamond award. And when you say the diamond award, you really get people's attention then. Because you know why? diamonds are a girl's best friend, right? That's what they all tell us. And so people think about that, and they all know it. They all know that diamonds are a girl's best friend. So I want them to remember it. So I came up with that imagery. And then finally, my last star is the crown jewel. Now you really are at the apex. I mean, you really are doing it. And again, I let them know all along the way. Now here's a red carpet platinum star real quick. You see I have a nice little clip there of a red carpet. My tenants love that. They just love that. This is during the 5th year. No maintenance cost for the resident. No maintenance cost for the resident. Why? These folks have been with me for 5 years. They're not going to tear up your property. The little amount of money that you're going to spend after a person's been with you 5 years is really pennies to a dollar. It's just not that much. You just don't do it. The kids have grown up. It's 5 years later. They don't have the toddlers. Now they're, they're older. If they were 5, 6 years, now they're like 10, 12. If they were 10, 12, now they're teenagers. They, thinking a whole different thing. They're not trying to tear up your house. At least that's been my experience. And we changed the lease language from tenant to resident. And we do give them a Visa card. And we have a big thing about, the imagery around Visa. Take it anywhere you want to go. Buy anything you want, any place you want, don't matter. Online, offline, doesn't really matter. They absolutely love it. Then we come to the Diamond Star after 6 years. Again, no maintenance costs. We change the lease language from tenant to resident. And now we give you a Visa card award for $400 to $500. And there we go with the diamonds are a girl's best friend, except for at Colonial Residential Properties, we say residents are our best friends. We want you to stay with us for years to come. Then we get to the crown jewel, which is the last star. That's during the 7-year rental. Again, we pay for all the maintenance. The lease language changes from tenant to resident. But now you are getting a Visa card that you can spend anywhere at a value of $500 to $600. Now you might say, $500 to $600? Really? Are you doing that? Well, again, go back to my chart. In fact, I think I have one coming up. And this is our move-in document. This is kind of an example of some of the things that we say right at the move-in. And here's the key. When you get to this star, you are virtually and here's what we say, you are virtually a business partner in our business. And when you start throwing out terms like business partner, you get people's attention because now, you know why? They think I got a stake in the game. They almost look at it like they're stockholders now. We don't go quite that far. We don't start paying them. We don't do that. But we want the imagery, because it's the imagery that causes people to say this is a fabulous program. Now, so then again, you start as a starlet at the beginning, your color is red, you're a tenant. Bronze after 2 years, you're a tenant. Silver after 3 years, you're a tenant. At the gold level, you become a resident partner. Okay? So here's what we tell them. You just graduated up. Families love that. Everybody loves that because people want to feel like they're making some progress. Then when they get to the 5 to 7 years, platinum, diamond, crown jewel, those are, now you become an elite resident partner. Okay? That is a powerful term. And then, of course, it's red carpet. We think of the diamond as a crystal stage. And then, of course, the crown jewel is multi-jewels. So again, you become a resident partner. Now, this is the chart that I was trying to get to. This is what this all comes down to, folks. I'm not going to go through all the math of this because it's the same figures. But here's the point. At the platinum, you're at $44,000. Okay? At the diamond, following this same methodology, you're now at $54,000. At the crown jewel, you're now at $63,840 that you have made after all of the repairs have been paid. This is why I love this program. If you had 10 rentals, what would it be? It would be over $500,000. If you had 20 rentals, it would be 1.2 million. And this is after all of the maintenance cost has been paid. So that is the reason why resident retention programs are an absolute cash cow. If you're not using them, I got one for you. Now, we have another, very quick, we have another program. What? You got another program? Yeah, we do. We have all kinds of programs. But this is the second most popular program. It's called TOP, Tenant Outstanding Program. This is an annual award, and it's based on competition between tenants. Isn't that a novel idea? We actually tell them, here's the race. We start January 1, start right out of the box, and it's a horse race all the way through December. We have a good standing criteria that we use to determine whether or not those families receive those awards. At the end of the year, in January the following year, we give out 4 awards. First place 100, second place 75, third place 50, fourth place 25. These are Walmart gift cards. And we give it to them on a gold leaf certificate. So now they really feel special. We don't bend it up or anything. We put it in the bigger, manila envelope and send it to them with a very nice thank you. And, and I got a blank one here, but the actual award itself is very nicely designed. They get that thing and they go like, wow, I have really accomplished something. And we have a letter that goes out to all of our families announcing the award winners, and then what do we do that is so absolutely critical? It's underlined here why they got it. So now everybody else who didn't get it is trying to figure out how did they get it, and maybe I ought to do that next year so maybe I can get it. And that's exactly what they do. I have some families that compete aggressively for this every year. And I've been doing it now for several years. And they'll even call me in December and say, I just want to remind you, I passed my first inspection. And what they're doing is they're trying to remind me that, I'm hoping that, you kind of remember that, when you give out the award. Tenant Outstanding Program is an absolutely wonderful program. Okay. All right, as I come to a close, the resident retention program is a winning strategy no matter what type of tenant you have. They don't have to be on Section 8. They don't have to be subsidized. This works for any rental. It works for any rental. There is a large positive cash flow. It helped me to retire from HR after 27 years. I've watched generations of families grow. I rented to the mother, then I rented to the daughters, then I rented to the daughter of the daughters. The community and neighborhood associations absolutely love it. Why? No drama in the neighborhood. We don't have police coming and going and lights blaring and folks playing a whole lot of music all night long. Why? Because we set some expectations around that at the beginning of the lease term, at the very beginning, saying that is inappropriate conduct, and number 2, you will not get an award if you engage in that kind of behavior and create chaos for the neighbors that live around you. And so that is the reason why the homeowners in that neighborhood, they absolutely love it. We've developed quality relationship with Section 8 in Miami Valley Housing. It significantly has reduced the break fix. We don't lose our best families. We work very hard to keep those families. We've built wonderful lifetime memories with those families. The few families I have lost that were really good families, I lost them to other states. And there's very little you can do with that because they're looking for good job opportunities and they go where the jobs are. So I've lost a handful of families some of my best families. I still have a lot of good families, but I've lost some of my best families. But not because they went 5 doors down or 1 street or 2 streets or 1 mile over. I don't lose those kind of folks because the other landlords aren't doing it, quite frankly. And so it's been a wonderful experience for me. The tenants love it, and so do we. Well, I want to give you a program that's already on the shelf where you can launch your resident retention program without thinking about all of the clip art, without thinking about the words you need to say, without thinking about any of